so dark, so ominous, so scary in a way, but so absolutely beautiful. Between never hearing guitar riffed that way or wielded the way that Tony Iommi did, to the, you know, the passionate wailing of Ozzy Osbourne, to the unbelievably poignant lyricism of Geezer Butler, and the, you know, the rhythmic monster that Bill Ward was and is.
I was first impacted with Sabbath when I was at school. So a mate of mine used to go around his house and play chess, and he used to play all these albums in the background, Sabbath and, you know, Jethro Tull and all kinds of stuff, all different stuff, King Crimson, all different stuff. And I remember hearing these songs and think, you know, of these different bands, and Sabbath in particular was like, wow, these riffs and amazing, you know. And anyway, I borrowed the albums from him, and that's what inspired me to not just Sabbath but lots of other albums. But that, you know, that's one of the albums, Paranoid, and the first album that made me want to play.
I first heard Black Sabbath as a teenager. There was a kid in my high school who had his own apartment. He was from another town, like had to leave. And so it was odd that this kid lived on his own. But he played War Pigs for me, and I made him play it for 5 hours straight. It just blew my mind. I was completely, you know, floored.
I remember my buddy Tommy, we were in art class in, had to be like 6th grade or whatever. I think we were like 12 years old at the time. But I remember he had the skull, like a jawless skull, which is basically like Scully in Black Label now. It's just a jawless skull with a lightning bolt going through it, and it said Black Sabbath 666 or whatever. And I was like, oh, wow, that's cool. I was like, what is that? And he goes, oh, it's this band my older brother listens to him. I was like, oh, wow. So I never even heard it, you know, just because it looked cool.
I was in grade school, and some kid brought the record into like the gym where we were like doing pull-ups, and I think it was We Sold Our Souls for Rock and Roll, that with that kind of like crazy album cover, and I remember being literally afraid. And I saw another album cover like at a mall, like some kid had it. I was afraid for my soul, and yet darkly compelled to find out what the music was about.
I remember my mother, we were at the mall. My mom was like, you know, you can get a record if you want to get a record. So I was like, oh, awesome. So I said, I picked out We Sold Our Souls for Rock and Roll because it's a double album. Just being such an asshole. So, you know, instead of just getting a single record, I made sure it was the double. So, but anyways, I remember putting the needle on. It was probably Black Sabbath was the first song. All I remember is being completely terrified listening to this album.
I feel hair going up my neck just talking about this. The fundament for what Avatar is as an idea, how we write, there are two bands on the top of that list, Beatles and Black Sabbath.
Absolutely a disruptor of sorts in their time. Groundbreaking on every level. Them, Zeppelin, and the Beatles are probably three of the most seminal bands in existence.
Well, let me start off by saying that they're my favorite band, together with the Beatles, if we're talking bands.
And the Beatles is about that love for the craft of the song, the courage to pursue something different, and to trust that your sound is you as a person. But we're talking about Sabbath here, and Sabbath is, their music speak the truth about what the whole point of doing metal music is. The primal thing of that riff. It's all about that riff and the groove the riff creates. And that's true if you want to do grindcore. It's about how the rhythm section communicate with that guitar, and done right, the gates of hell open, the gates of heaven open.
Black Sabbath, I'll never forget it. Actually, it's something that I remember really well because there was back in my hometown in Spokane, we had this AM radio station. This tells you how long ago this was. It was listening to AM radio. And they used to, every night at like 8 o'clock, they'd have two different DJs that would kind of go head to head and try and play the heaviest song. And so I loved it because, you know, I discovered Alice Cooper, and I discovered, you know, just a number of artists I never would have heard on AM radio other than that. So one night they go head to head, and one of the songs happens to be Iron Man. And I'm like, I remember laying in my bunk bed with my Star Wars sheets wrapped around me, you know, and I'm like, what is this? This is awesome.
The first Sabbath song that I got turned on to, I think, was probably Iron Man. That was my intro. And then I bought that the Paranoid record and lost my mind. I thought, like, I mean, there's never been music like that. And it's so great. And it began my lifelong love of riffs.
I first heard Iron Man and when I was younger, and I remember just being stopped in my tracks. I didn't know what the hell was going on, man. That sound, that tone, the vibe that they gave off, and even like looking at their early pictures where they're all wearing the crosses looking like a bunch of vampires. Still one of the coolest bands on the planet, dude. I'm massive fan. All fucking hails Black Sabbath. Goddamn.
And I remember trying to play the song Paranoid itself, and I remember really struggling with it and getting the ump and throwing the guitar down. I had to throw it in the bed. I couldn't throw it on the floor because I broke it. I couldn't afford to buy another one. But, and I just learned from that thing that I've got to go back and just be careful, kind of just take it as it comes and play when I feel like it, not try and force it. And then the riff just came fine. And after that, it was all right. But I distinctly remember that particular riff.
First song I remember hearing from Black Sabbath was Heaven and Hell, and just the long solo in the middle of it, and it literally is the reason, or one of the biggest reasons why I play guitar today.
It led me down the path to find even heavier and darker stuff, and which I guess is a testament to Black Sabbath in the sense that they paved the way for all of us to be doing what we do.
You have that riff in place. You can go wherever the song needs to go, because Black Sabbath, there you got the doom metal, the thrash metal, the death metal, everything starts there. Also progressive metal, progressive rock, Ferris wheel boots, man, all those twists and turns, but always with a groove. It's all those truths of what heavy music is supposed to be.
The Ozzy records and the first two Dio albums and the Gillan one. I love Born Again. All the records, there are many great records, but those classic records, I don't even have to put them on. I can listen in my head. I know them that well.
My brother Mike was more like Van Halen, Kiss kind of guy, but my brother Dan had every dark, heavy record out there. So I'd hear all this stuff from him. I remember hearing Sweet Leaf through, he was upstairs listening to it, and I loved that track. And just some of the most iconic guitar lines. Ozzy's vocals are ridiculous. I mean, the godfathers of heavy metal.